go live. We are going to go live. 1, 2, 3, live. Perfect. Wow.
Were we faking it before?
No, we aren't.
We're live
Always.
now, but what were we before?
Okay, guys, welcome back. Welcome to Microsoft Excel Power Platform Meetup for Saudi Arabia, and I have a lot of guests from the different places. So make sure that you please mention it in the chat. Let me quickly share my screen because today we have an lovely guest. My brother is joining from London today, and Alan, you must be, that's the reason you all are here today. And Alan has some surprise for us. He's going to, on a very special request, Alan is here today. We have arranged this meetup very quick because Alan has launched his book, and on the request, he's going to share us some amazing tips and tricks and on our session today. So it's really an honor to having Alan over here. So let me quickly share my screen and let's begin the meetup. So, okay, I thought I was sharing my screen. Okay, so you all know me. I'm Faraz. I'm a founder of excelexciting.com and MVP. And I stay in Saudi Arabia and I run this meetup. And my passion is to work with my friends, provide amazing solutions with Excel, which can make our life easy. And my passion is equally to learn also from the community. Okay, so this is going on. Okay, so these are some of our past meetups which has happened. So you can always feel free to scan the QR code and you can always go and check those sessions and definitely you can watch them anytime. And one good news is that Saudi Arabia Microsoft Excel and Power Platform Meetup have reached around 1,300 members. Congratulations. Thank you, the community, for your support and really appreciated. This wouldn't be possible without your support and presence. And we hope we grow more and more love is going to come. So this is something, our upcoming sessions. We have a coming session after 5 days with Alexandria. She'll be talking about how Power Query can transform your routine work. She'll be showing some tricks on Power Queries and how you can use it in the routine work. November, we are still planning. I'm still looking for the. I'm still in discussion with the presenter because I will be traveling. Myself and Alan, we have been traveling to Bulgaria for Excel days. So we want to make sure that we hit the right time so we don't overlap also because there are a lot of people attending Alan sessions as well, a London meetup and Saudi Arabia. So we want to make sure that you get most out of it. So last but not least, I would like to invite all the superheroes from the community over here who does like to talk about Microsoft Office, Power Platform, Azure, Google, anything you would like to talk, come share here, share your experiences. We'll be really happy to hear from you. And you can always write me back on excelexciting@outlook.com. And we all know this housekeeping. Just to keep a note that this session is live streaming and it is already available on the YouTube /excelexciting. So the guest on the hot seat today. Many of you know that I think in the last session of the meetup, if you were there, I call Alan as the James Bond of Excel. So he's here today. Alan, I'll leave the floor to you and you can please introduce yourself. The reason why I call him James Bond because he has some amazing secret tricks, which really sometimes it blows you off, like, oh wow, it's like that. So Alan, over to you, brother.
Cheers, buddy. Right. Let's get this going. Put pressure on me, Faraz.
No pressures.
Screen is sharing.
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Cool. Yeah, welcome everybody. A lot of familiar faces in the participants here. Hello to everyone on the YouTube stream. So for those who don't know me, so I'm based in the UK. I live in a town called Ipswich, which is about an hour from London. Originally from the London area, hence my accent is London. I just don't live there anymore. But probably most well known for Computergaga, which is my website and YouTube channel, which has been going for a good kind of 12, 13 years now. It's been quite a while. And in more recent years, I've been writing some books and a few extra things in addition to these meetups. And that's really what brings me here today. I was talking to Faraz I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and we decided to get a meetup together. So it's a little bit lastminute.com arranging this. But here we are, just a kind of quick fire meetup, just to, an opportunity for me to promote my new formulas book and to show some of the, a sneak peek of stuff from it. Just a few words on the Excel formulas book, and I did get some kind of browser action ready as well. So this is the book on Amazon UK. I know we're calling in from different parts of the world right now. And part of my frustration on the release of this has been the availability of the book and the huge variety of prices it seems to be at. When you go to different stores, it's all over the place. So I've been getting lots of messages about where I can get it cheapest, or why is it this price here? And unfortunately, that's all out of my control. It's nothing to do with me. It all comes from the publisher. But the UK Amazon, I can't speak for others, as you can see here, I've currently got it at pretty much half price, which I know has been putting a lot of people off. The kind of £60 price, which they kind of threw on it for whatever reason. I mean, it's done because it's big. It's like 850 pages. It's quite a large book, which meant they put a large price on it. But yeah, Amazon UK got it currently pretty much half price there, 46% to be precise. And I also found another website called Awesome Books, which have it at pretty much the same price. And you can see in the top right, they do international delivery for £2.99. Although it does mention it's pre-order. So that goes with the gripe I have about this weird availability. It kind of says it is, and then it's not. So I'm not sure what's going on there, but these are probably the two best prices that I've found anyway, from looking around from here at different sites and the different prices you can get it for, if anybody is interested in that. Over 500 examples of different formulas. Come back to my slideshow. Faraz mentioned that we'll be meeting up in about a month's time. 11th of November, there's a conference in Bulgaria. So especially for those of you kind of Europe based, it's pretty easy to get there from anywhere. Well, easy-ish, depends where you are flight wise, but it's normally pretty easy to get there from Europe. I've done it myself as an attendee, and I'll be there speaking with Faraz. So I thought I'd share a little picture of Faraz and I last time we managed to meet in person. This is Slovenia. This is Slovenia conference was the last time we met, in person. That is, due to COVID, it's been kind of long awaited, and there's been quite a few things in London. So I've been meeting up with some people in London recently at different conferences there. But this Bulgaria is going to be a great opportunity to meet up with a few Excel people that I either haven't met before or haven't met for a while. And hopefully I'll see more of you at other events as they're beginning to pick up again now, which is good. I'm very much a fan of the in-person stuff over the online if it's possible. So yeah, the session today is about network days primarily. So I know it's a bit of a kind of niche topic. Most people talk in kind of broad forms, like let's talk about dynamic arrays, or let's talk about pivot tables, or creating add-ins. Whereas I've gone for something extremely niche. I'm targeting one function. But it was just meant to, I just wanted to do something a bit different. So it's a function that, nobody really goes around talking about this one in the way they do with things like VLOOKUP and filter and stuff like that. So maybe to do something a bit different, and it will probably be quite a short and sweet session because I guess there's not a huge amount you can talk about it with. But that gives us the opportunity for the floor to ask questions and maybe share some experiences as well. Now, when I say network days here, you can see by the sheet and by the name of this meetup, which is partly created by Faraz. And what's the name of this meetup? Was it International Networking or something? But because really I'm talking about the INTL version of this, which, hasn't always been around. I think it was, I'm coming off my head now, I think it was 2016 or something. Maybe somebody can clarify that. But when it was released to essentially replace network days. But, these things, it's always a bit of a mystery as to how Microsoft are going to deal with these things. Functions like concatenate kind of got the compatibility treatment. So concat came out and went, let's throw a compatibility symbol on it because, concat's here to take over. And then functions like SUMIF did not get a compatibility treatment. So I don't know, why does concatenate get that treatment and you don't do it to SUMIF? When SUMIFs essentially replace that. And it's a similar story with network days. Network Days International essentially replaces it, but network days is still higher in the list. So it still gets used heavily, which is not a problem, obviously, but is the kind of weaker of the two vying functions there. So just for anyone who might be new to these functions, looking at the people in the room, I'm assuming most of you aren't. This is quite familiar, I believe, to a few of you on this Zoom call. But, this function is all about returning how many working days between two dates. So I've brought up a list of a bunch of dates upcoming, and I've just coloured some out, which I'll talk about more as to why in a moment. But that's just to help us, kind of ascertain whether the results are correct, or as Oz de Soleil loves to say, like rectify and stuff. He always says in his videos, let's rectify that. let's verify this is the correct answer. Always check, and all that stuff. So this is partly so we can check that these formulas are doing what we think they're doing to some extent. We won't check all of them. It will kind of slow us down. But we have these tasks here. We've got start and finish dates. We want to know how many working days. Maybe this is because we're charging them by day or something. So it's very precise, or it's important, sorry. So I've been dashing around and been training all day. It's very important that we get this precise because, there's a kind of billable charge coming. We can't just be a day out. Like sometimes we can be when we're just like tracking if a date is due. We don't have to be that accurate. But if we do, we can use functions like network dates. Now, just looking at the normal one first, the one that I said is no longer really that necessary. So network days, returning a number of whole work days between two dates. The initial one requires 3 arguments, or when I say require, it requires 2. The last one is optional. The square brackets always indicating an optional argument there to the large extent. The start date being the first cell here, the start date, referring to a range right now. Anyone who looks at my books will hear me go on about tables continuously, but we're actually running off a range right now, so B2. Comma for the finish date of C2, and then the optional ability to provide some holidays, as they call it, so a non-working day. I've always found the term holidays to be a little bit misleading, maybe, because there's many reasons why it might be non-working, whether that due to some kind of illness or different projects or site closures. There's many reasons why work, whatever that means, may not happen. But they call the question holidays, which kind of leads people down a very narrow path in their thinking. And that's completely optional. So I don't have to do that. I can close this off and run it. And that will return how many Mondays to Fridays. So the network days function, just assuming that Saturday and Sunday are your non-working days. That is the built-in assumption. And every Monday to Friday is a working day, regardless of any common bank holidays like Christmas would be in this country and stuff. If it's on a Monday or Friday, it's a working day. And that's where that holidays argument on the end would come in. So we have the opportunity to specify any non-working days. And more on that in a moment. So 4 working days coming up here. And as I say, got the dates on the right to check some of this stuff. So going from the 9th to the 14th, so the 9th included there. We've got 1, 2 for that working day, Friday as well, and then we've got the Monday. So the Wednesday, the Thursday, the Friday, and the Monday. Ignore the fact that the Friday has got this strike through right now. That's done because on another sheet I've classified it as a non-working day. So jumping into that, I'll come back on that question. On a different sheet, on this non-working sheet, I've just prepared a few, pretend non-working days. Now, these are in a table. This table being called TBL Holidays. You've just seen it in the top left here. And I want to refer to that for these holidays argument. So coming back to the sheet, if I dip back into this function, I'll stick a comma on the end and I'm going to refer to that table. So referring now to TBL holidays, the 11th of June is one of those non-working days from there. That's why it's green and has the strike through on this sheet right now. So referring to that now reduces it from 4 to 3 and any other changes. So there's a couple of changes on the bottom here. So now that Friday's ignored, it is just Wednesday, Thursday, and the Monday in there. And something that surprises a lot of people when they start with network days as well is that it's inclusive of the start and finish date. So with a typical function, just finding the difference between two dates, doing like today's date take away yesterday's date would produce the answer of 1. But if you did network days between yesterday's date and today's date, you'd return the answer of 2. So it's always inclusive of those dates. So in this case, inclusive of the 9th and the 14th. They are involved in the answer of 3. Moving on for this for the moment, I'll come back on some of those questions coming in. Obviously, this is about the international version, if we call it that. So going into the international one, there's a reasonable amount of scope more to how we can customize this one. So it is definitely an improved version on the standard network days. The initial thing people will notice is the additional argument of weekend coming in position 3 there. Another optional argument. So if you ignore it, it behaves exactly the same as network days, hence it being a replacement for it essentially. But we are able to then, using that weekend parameter or that argument, be a little bit more flexible as to what is a weekend. So I could at this point select my start date, comma, finish date, or maybe I should have called it end date maybe. Put in a comma, then I've got a nice list of what is the weekend. Is it Saturday or Sunday, which is the kind of default assumption. But I could go for number 11 maybe and say, no, only Sunday. Like only Sunday on a typical 7-day week is considered a non-working day or weekend, as they're calling it. So I could choose option 11 and I'll ignore the holidays on this one. I'll just close it off, ignoring that last argument again for now. So now we get the answer of 5. You may remember it was 4 before, because now we're including this Saturday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and the Monday. Only the Sunday is ignored. And by using that INTL version, we're able to get a bit more flexible. Now, I've got a few examples to come, but hopefully some of the joy of sessions like this is to open up our minds really to kind of what's possible, depending how much we need it. And what I'm kind of getting at here is with functions like this, when we went to that third argument, the response, if I just get back to it again, the response was to provide some kind of index number. So number 11 for Sunday, which makes the function incredibly unreadable because people look at it and think, what the heck does 11 mean? That means absolutely nothing unless you memorize this list. But looking from the positive side of it, using numbers like that, we can pull information using lookup formulas or some dynamic element if we need to. If this kind of stuff is dependent on site or dependent on department or something, in theory, we can have some kind of lookup, like a VLOOKUP, looking for an option and returning a number such as that. And we can start thinking a bit outside the box if it's needed. You know, that kind of stuff is not commonplace, but using that flexibility over just like what a word is normally or can be a good thing. Moving to this customized column for the moment. This is more of a trick, I guess, that many people wouldn't know. But once again, the people in this room, I'm quite familiar with some of you, and I assume many of you probably do know this one. But with the international one, which isn't possible for the other, we can provide a string of ones and zeros as a method for providing working days as well. So, or a non-working, I should say, maybe. I could put a start date, comma, finish date. Let me count this formula bar right now. And then when we get to this like weekend parameter, within some quotes, we can enter a string of zeros and ones, the 0 representing a working day and the 1 representing a non-working day, starting from a Monday. So if I was to put 4 zeros, that will represent Monday to Thursday. And if I put 3 ones, indicating that Friday to Sunday is non-working. So now I'm going beyond the scope of this list. This list does not have an option saying Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are non-working. But by using a technique like this, that's me saying that we only work on Mondays to Thursdays. And then once again, I've got the option of adding in some holidays. So I guess I could throw in that TBL holidays again at this point. It's been a little while since I used that. So we only work Mondays to Thursdays, and can you ignore these dates as well? That gives us a response of 3. Didn't really know what I was expecting there. Let's find out. So for 9th to 14th, I've got a working day. Friday's non-working, so we skip over to the Monday. So just those 3 again in that example, because we specified Friday or Sunday as non-working. I'm not sure what that bit means. So that's a technique that you can incorporate, or you can include in quite a few different functions. I did a video on my YouTube channel, like last week, I think it was, on returning non-adjacent columns. And so in different approaches to doing that, with choose cols and choose and index match, and just seeing some different techniques. And one of the comments I got on that video is that we can use a string of zeros and ones to specify the columns to return again. You know, once again, the big negative there is it's not very readable, especially if you've got a big table. You don't really want to put a whole string of zeros and ones. It's very awkward, but it is a viable technique, and it's interesting to see, you know, the skills people have, but also different tips and tricks and these little secrets that Excel has for us. Okay. Powering on for the moment. I'm just jumping to a sheet called Conditional Holidays here. And I've got some holidays data on another sheet. So I'm now working on the idea that I've got 2 different locations, simply called 1 and 2, and then a start and finish date of those. And we want to know how many working days again between them. But in this example, the working days will be dependent on the location. Coming over to the sheet I've got called holidays data, I have a simple little list for the 2 of them, a few holiday dates for location 1, and a few of those non-working dates for location 2 as well. And just seeing how we can include some of our other friends, our other functions within Network Days International to get some kind of dynamic or some kind of lookup variability in here. So in cell E2, running with our Network Days INTL right now, the start date being C2, running off the grid again here, comma D2. And then when it comes to this weekend parameter, if I just jump up to the formula bar, coming up to this weekend parameter, there's a few different techniques I could use right now to bring across only the weekend dates, if they're different, by location. So let's imagine that I want to put in one of those strings of zeros and ones again. Just go with this. Then an approach I could make, but to start a new line with this maybe, is we could use the switch function. That was Alt and Enter, in case anybody doesn't do that. So there is a function in Excel called switch, which I'm a big fan of, which some of you may know from previous work. Now, it's often not needed. If is the main logical function by an absolute country mile. If is hugely powerful, especially in this array era that we now live in with 365 as well. But switch is great for those kind of multiple conditional tests. And I'm not saying this is the best way of doing it. I'm just demoing different stuff before people start talking about filter and XLOOKUP and various other ways we could do this. But putting in the expression, I'm going to put that in as cell B2. So essentially a case kind of statement, testing the case of cell B2. Comma, what is the value we're checking it for? I'm going to check it for the text of location 1. Comma, and what would the result be? And then I can provide, I'm just kind of making this up on the spot to be fair, a string of zeros and ones. So maybe I say that we have a non-working day on a Tuesday, like the site is closed on a Tuesday for whatever reason that may be. And then we work on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the typical weekend in this country would be Saturday, Sunday. So maybe that's off. But looking at default response or value 2, maybe if it's location 2, then that'll be a different string of zeros and ones. So maybe at this place, it's closed on a Monday, maybe, but we open on a Tuesday, and just very difficult to read the zeros and ones there. Just a subtle difference there that I'm saying, no, location 1 is closed on a Tuesday, location 2 is closed on a Monday in this theoretical scenario. And then I'll close off this function for, oh, sorry, I haven't closed switch yet. That one was going to be for network days. And I'll ignore the holidays argument for now, planning to come back to it. So by bringing in, any of our favorite functions right now, but using switch as a demonstration, whoops, then we're able to, I mistyped location 2 by the looks of it. Oh yeah, space. We're able to bring this element of kind of logical testing or dynamism to it. My kids are in the room behind me. I thought one was coming in there. Quick look around. So these are just demonstrations of things we can do with many functions. This is just a kind of niche topic for this session, but how networkdays.intl is, I haven't finished with it yet. I'm just doing a bit of a pause in talk of, it's a far more dynamic and flexible, I guess is the word, version of a function to its predecessor network days. And I started this session by saying how, concat replacing concatenate, and so we've got text join in that now. And a similar thing with some ifs versus some if, and many functions got improved version, some of them getting compatibility treatment, some of them not, because this one doesn't, maybe doesn't get the credit it deserves. When you Google things, everyone talks about network days. So there's a better one out there. And for those of you who use Power BI and stuff, you may know there's a DAX function for network days as well, which is basically this one, but they called it network days, just to confuse people. Which is awesome. Okay, I said I was going to add something for the holidays. So looking at the other sheet right now, we have different holiday ranges for different locations. And yeah, so the range of return is dependent on location. Once again, different ways we can do this, whether we're going to do indirect or, I don't know, index match, or there's so many cool ways. But what some of you might be screaming out, I don't know what you're screaming. I cannot hear you. But you might be thinking, XLOOKUP. Any excuse to do an XLOOKUP. So follow this holidays, I want to look up a different range depending on some criteria. So I'm going to do an XLOOKUP function, which is going to look for the location. So location 1 right now, comma, what is the lookup array? I can't remember if this is a table or not. Is it a table? I can't remember. I'm going to go and select it. I'm going to go holidays data. No, it's not a table. So I'm just going to select those 2 headers. If it was a table, I would have referenced the header row. That's what I was thinking about it. I'll need to make that absolute, ready for my copy down. And another comma for the return array. And for this, it's not a table once again. So, there may be many complaints about different approaches here with pros and cons, but I'm just going to grab a little bit of range and just grab a few extra cells for an element of future proofing, which, with a table, there would be that dynamism already, or with a spill array or something there would be. But I'm just going to select it for now. And I would need to make that absolute as well, wouldn't I? I'm going to close off my XLOOKUP. So what this should do is look for the location along, let's call it the header row, and then return the range. And because I selected the whole group of ranges, it will return like that entire range. XLOOKUP can return references or return ranges. It's a talent shared by index, but not shared by VLOOKUP and the like. So it is a strength it has. Press and enter on this, returns no result. Did the others change? Yes, we had a change on the last 2 here. So I guess for location 2, 13th of July for the 30th. If I look over here, what was it, 13th to the 30th? So we've got a couple of dates here falling in that range, which must have been the culprits there. So once again, just demonstration, oh, wrong sheet, just using demonstrations of using some of the more powerful functions in Excel, done switch for one, XLOOKUP for another. Pick your favorite. There's always a good debate over index match v XLOOKUP and all this little fight. Faraz knows I'll go for index all day long there. I put my flag down. But there's multiples of options. We're kind of spoiled for options maybe in Excel nowadays to a large extent, but it's certainly by doing these we can take our functions further, or our formulas further maybe. I was meant to do that in that column. That's why it's called with holes. Never mind. Next along. So in this holidays data sheet, table, back to using tables. Oh, I've missed you, tables. This one's called TBL non-working. A TBL, by the way, I don't know how many of you share techniques like that or not. Completely unnecessary. Some people use prefixes, some people don't. I seem to be a bit 50-50. But TBL just being a prefix for tables, so that if I'm naming formulas and constants and ranges and whatever else I might be naming, spill ranges, lists, then it's just an easy way that I can refer to the table. And one of the reasons like you might deploy something like that is so that when you're in the middle of writing a formula, this is one of the main reasons anyway, I know that when I type TBL, I'm going to get a list of all my tables. So I know there's shortcuts to bring up the paste names box and stuff like this, which I think is F3, I think. Someone can clarify that if I'm wrong, doing this off my head. But by using TBL, I know by using that prefix, I'll get my tables in the list, which is essentially my own paste names list. And count blank comes along, the cheeky little monkey, every time, because it's got TBL in its name. How dare it? Right. TBL underscore, alrighty. Underscore fan. So what we're dealing with here really though is a typical tabular structure, which, in Excel, this is what we know and love, isn't it? This thing over here is generally what we don't know and love so much, in a way that they shouldn't really be headers. They're the kind of data in a way. And this is typically what we grow to expect, and what we use Power Query to create and stuff is this columnar structure. And in something like this, if I want to return the holiday dates, as the sheet gives away, but some of you may be guessing, I was going to use filter. Once again, I've got a few different locations here: Bedford, Ashford, and Salisbury. different places in the UK. For those who never heard of them, you might have heard of Salisbury, maybe not the other two. And I want to do a filter to return the necessary dates. So using this days area, if I do network days, .intl, start date being that one. Ah, cool, yeah. Just reading that Oakley's comment in the chat box there, dimension tables. Finish date for D2. What am I doing here? Holiday dates. So for weekend, maybe I will choose for this demo, I might go back and say Sunday only. I'll choose option 11. And then this is really what we're here for, the holidays, keeping this dynamic. I did X lookup in the last example. Let's play around with these formulas. That's what I kind of promised in the abstract of this session. So I'm going to use filter this time. The many options we have. The array to return, here comes the TBL moment. I'm going to say, what one was this? Non-working, TBL non-working, I think. Forgetting what table was what now. And open square bracket for the list of columns. What am I returning? Returning the dates. Close square bracket, comma. If the include argument, if TBL non-working, open square bracket. And if you don't love this for referencing, I just don't understand you. Table was so good. Now I'm testing if the location is equal to the value in cell B2. Working off a range again here for the return value, so for some reason. And I'll close this off. I'm not going to worry about the if empty argument, optional argument on the end. Once again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. This is not speaking best practice here. I'm just ignoring it for now as it's not the main focus of our attention. But I kind of built in kind of if error in a way. I'll close this off and run it. And this should return the necessary answers, which we don't really know what we're expecting, do we? What did I say? I said Sunday only as our non-working day. And then this returning the array of dates, judging by Bedford here. So it's coming over into network days, coming over into this table and returning only the dates that relate to Bedford. So far, probably the two key takeaways and things I'm demonstrating in this session, the zeros and ones option of the string, being that we can include things like that in this function over its predecessor, and now just incorporating some of the, the most powerful functions in Excel with this one. I did a contest on a YouTube channel, which I think some of you are involved with recently, asking people what their favorite function is. I think I might have mentioned it on a recent post somewhere, what it was. Anybody know what probably the winner was out of that? I should do a report on it, really, shouldn't I? You can probably guess there's about 3 or 4 that were kind of clear winners. It might be a controversial winner. It was index and match. Ran away with that, which technically is not a function, it's 2, but let's not argue that. But index and match won that. Closely followed by filter, X lookup, V lookup. Yeah, you could have guessed what the winners would have been. Oh, sum was probably maybe 5th place. Yeah, date diff was mentioned. I don't know if you mentioned that, Shaheen, on the YouTube. I remember someone saying that. There was a few notable ones. Somebody mentioned N. I think text got a mention. Text join got a few mentions. Transpose got a mention. Unique got a few. That was quite high. But yeah, index and match. It was all lookup functions. Index, match, X lookup, and filter. Pretty much ran away with the game. Which was, we could have probably suspected that, couldn't we? They are pretty awesome. Okay, probably just coming into our last bits, really, and we'll break into some chats and Q&A. I said it would be kind of short and sweet, but when I was talking to Faraz about showing this kind of like niche topic or something to talk about, it would almost be remiss to not mention workday.intl because it suffers from the same ailment, if that's the kind of right terms to use right now, in the fact that there is a function called workday and there's a workday.intl. So this function, as it tells you, returning the date, a specified number of working days before and after a given date, and it works in pretty much the same way. So talking about one in this session, we kind of might as well throw our hat into the ring for the other one as well. So working on the idea here that I've got some kind of approval date for something, and then when that approval date goes in, a due date is created. So maybe once that's approved, we have a deadline of 10 days later that something happens. They're very common in business. Some of you can probably relate to it in your own lines of work, that once something happens, it immediately generates this, right, make sure it gets paid in the next 28 days or something. And let's imagine it's working days that we're dealing with here. So I can't just do that plus 10 or whatever we're doing. Let's say we're doing 10. So I'm going to do workday.intl, start date being the approved date, as it's called right now, or cell B2. How many days? So negative to go into the past, which is quite rare, I think, with this function. Positive number to move to the future. So 10 working days into the future. And then everything that we've just been speaking about with network days immediately applies here. So whether I want to do the string technique of saying, oh, we work on a Monday, we don't work Tuesday, Wednesday, we work Thursday, and all that stuff we were talking about, or whether I use the little pick list and say that we don't work on a Wednesday, Thursday, like for whatever reason, this doesn't apply there. So when I say we don't work, that's, we might work, but maybe this project doesn't. It's very much based on the scenario. I might go for that number 5, it's a bit of an odd one. And then the holidays. And we can always bring in our functions again, like filter, XLOOKUP, index, indirect, whatever your favorite method is for kind of dynamically referring to a range of values. I think I'll ignore the holidays here. So closed on a Wednesday, Thursday, I think I chose. 10 working days into the future. That should return a date. I think these cells were formatted in advance. It did say it was going to return a serial number, but I believe I formatted these cells in advance there, so we didn't get a 40,000 whatever result. And the date is returned. So returning the date here, working with working days only. Next along, got a list of dates, or a list of months. But they are dates, really. So cell E2 says January, but it is the 1st of January 2022. And then just using some custom number formatting to display it as a month, with 4 M's there. And we want to find out what is the first working day of each of those months. So what we're going to do is use our workday function, or workday.intl to be precise. Last example, this will be breaking some chat maybe. Workday.intl. Start dates being the date beside me. It doesn't look like a date, but we know it's the 1st of that given month. Just using a fill handle to generate those quickly. A couple of different approaches here, but I should be able to subtract 1 from that value. Comma days, I'm going to put a positive number 1. So I'm looking for the next working day. And then, what was I going to do here? I've completely forgotten what I'm doing. A long day. Oh yes, I was going to make up my working day string. So for the weekend, I'm going to go for the string technique again. I'm going to say we work on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, close on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and close it off. So essentially we're working for the first working day, whatever that means. In this example, we're pretending it means the first Monday or Thursday of any of these given months. We do have that holidays argument. I'm just ignoring it for this demo, but we could quite happily, refer to a list of bank holidays in that country or countries, and any other non-working days there may be, if we're a part-time worker or we don't work on a certain day. Closing this off, tells me, these were formatted in advance as well, that the 3rd of January is the first Monday to Thursday. And then we've got the first day of the month, 4th for April, apparently. So I did look at this beforehand. I think the 1st of April, I think was a Friday. So because I said that Friday was non-working, then that forces it into the Monday as the first working day. Cool. Yeah, party time in the chat. Yeah, just passing 6:45 by my local time. I know we're all got different times on the clock. Some of you are lunch hour, some of you are dinner time and stuff. But a couple of quick examples of workday.intl there. Let me stop my share for a moment so I can see you guys a bit properly, and I'll look at the chat window. Any questions, team? Anything anyone wants to add? Or maybe we should hand over to Faraz. Faraz, you take over. This is your group.
Yeah, there's a question on YouTube, Alan.
Yeah.
That how you turn the January, is it a text value or it's a date? When you are referring
On that last one.
Yeah, the last
Yeah,
one.
it's a date.
Okay.
We'll just bring that back. Yeah, it's a date. So there's different ways we can do that. You know, we could have used the text function if that was necessary. And some of you may know other techniques. You know, we could have just used a fill handle, couldn't we, with a custom list. But here you can see up here it is actually the 1st of Jan, and in format cells, I'll just use 4 M's to present it as the long version of the month, which is all a lie. It is just a date.
So the person is asking that whether it still remains the date or it's still the text.
It is a date.
It's a date. Yeah. Just checking some chats, over here. There's a nice comment about the filter function, how you manage to get it with different locations. There's a good feedback here on YouTube.
Cool.
Okay, table. I usually use table underscore. I use that way. And,
Yeah.
And especially when I'm writing lambdas and let functions, I use a trick by like putting an underscore before any variable. So
who's that? Win, did you say?
Yeah, Win.
Yeah.
So like you put an underscore and you get all the list of your defined variables.
Yeah, I don't think I do that when I do my let, to be honest. It's weird how we work differently, isn't it?
There's a question. I'll just reshare it again in the chat. Let me just put it again here.
The index session in there.
If you guys have any question, you can feel free to drop it in the chat. We are still here.
Sure. So there's a few comments on the use of dimension and fact in there.
Yeah, like when you're referencing it to the table, Oakley has a suggestion that when you put a dimension table, instead of putting TBL, just put D, so that can easily identify the dimension. That's a good advice. And if it is a fact table, then you just put F.
Oh, when I first read that question, I wasn't sure, but I think I'm with you now, Philip. I think, yeah, we can definitely use sequence for the spiel range. Yeah, for creating that holiday range, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
When I read it live, it
coming up from YouTube. Would you like to read it, Alan? From Mustafa? It's in the chat, the question.
Yep, scrolling.
Excellent. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that first one is what I just, yeah. That was in the economy. Right, let me look at my spreadsheet because I don't know that well.
Thanks for yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I understand the question correctly, ideally the initial range that I wrote it in with the formula, I guess ideally that would be a table. or both of them be tables or a spill range. Anything that we want dynamic really falls down to either table or spill range. And the one we opt for, I guess, depends on where the data is coming from. You know, if it's coming from something like Power Query or it's raw data, it's probably a table. Whether it's the result of a calculation, it could well be a spill range nowadays.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be, but either of those will add the dynamic element. Yeah.
I think this is a nice
Yeah.
question.
I was just reading the comment by Philip there. You putting a question in, Faraz, did you say?
Yeah, there's a question saying that a question I would like from Mustafa from YouTube.
Mhm.
Thanks for an amazing session as always. A question I would like to ask is that is it possible in your last example to write formula in a way that it drags down as the data is entered in a column E? So I think
Yeah, that's what I was referring to. Yeah, with the dynamic,
dynamic one.
the tables and the spill ranges. Yeah.
Okay, I think we can end the live session from the YouTube, but we'll be still on the Zoom. So if you haven't yet grabbed the book for Alan, make sure that you go and grab it. From the YouTube, you can find it in the video description. Make sure that you can take the advantage of the sales what Amazon is giving it right now. It's on a very discounted price. And always, you can feel free to reach out myself, Alan. Any kind of support has been needed. We are always there. And
Absolutely.
as usual, Alan, you know very well how I end the meetup. Before I end the meetup, I always ask my speaker to give any kind of a thought, any kind of a last words, and then we end the YouTube live, but we'll be still on the Zoom.
Any last words, did you say?
Yeah, any last word? It could be a Steve Jobs quote, or it could be a special secret code from your side for some Excel formula or something.
Not necessarily a trick or anything. I mean, the way I always end my training sessions normally, and many of you on this call don't need to be told this, that's why you're here, really. But I always end my training sessions by asking people to take things further. In any training session, any meetup, you can only discuss so much in the hours, whatever you have. But also there's no ceiling to this stuff. And people like Faraz or myself, I certainly know, I'm not the kind of greatest around. There's so much more that Excel can do, and the only way of finding that out or reinforcing learning is by doing. So go write formulas. That's my closing statement.
Hey, thank you, Alan. Thank you so much. Bye from YouTube, and we'll be still live on the Zoom. So, bye.
Cheers all.
Let me stop.